Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, get you informed fast. And today, we're doing a deep dive into a name you've probably heard quite a bit lately, especially if you follow New York City politics, Zohran Mamdani.
Definitely making waves.
Big waves. I mean, the buzz is real, particularly after his, pretty significant victory just a few days ago, June 24th, 2025. That was the New York City Democratic mayoral primary. He actually defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Right, with 43% of the vote. That secures him the Democratic nomination.
Exactly. So our mission today is really to unpack who Zohran Mamdani is. You know, where did he come from? What's his journey? And what about this ambitious platform he's running on? Plus the controversies, because there are quite a few, that make him such a central figure in this 2025 race.
Mm-hmm.
We've looked at a bunch of sources for this. There's an article, Zohran Mamdani, a rising political force in New York, plus info from Wikipedia, Queens Post, Washington Post, The Guardian, NDTV, ABC News. Pretty wide range.
And what's really, striking about Mamdani is just how fast this has all happened. His ascent, we're talking about a major city, New York, and his rise has been incredibly quick. Mm-hmm. It's noteworthy, I think, because it's this mix, this blend of a very unique background and some very, very modern campaign tactics.
That's a great point. Unique background is right. So let's start there. Trace those origins. He was born in Kampala, Uganda. His parents are the filmmaker Mira Nair and the academic Mahmoud Mamdani. Pretty well-known figures.
Right. And he grew up partly in Cape Town, South Africa, too, before the family moved to New York City when he was, 7?
7 years old, yeah. How do you think that kind of, global upbringing might shape how he looks at issues here in New York, urban issues specifically?
Well, it's got to give you a different lens, right? Exposure to different cities, different socioeconomic setups, different cultures. It could provide maybe a more nuanced understanding of the kind of complexities you find in a big city. It's not just theory, it's lived. Mm-hmm. He went on to Bowdoin College, studied Africana studies. And interestingly, before politics, his career path wasn't exactly straight A to B. He worked as a housing counselor, which is very ground-level stuff.
Okay.
And he also had this brief stint in music, rapping under the name Young Cardamom.
Young Cardamom. You don't hear that every day on a politician's resume.
Not typically, no.
So, from music, housing counselor.
Yeah.
How did he actually make the jump into electoral politics? What was that first step?
So his first big political win came in 2020. He actually took on a 4-term incumbent for the state assembly seat in Queens and won.
Right. That was a significant upset at the time, too.
It was. And once he got into the assembly, he pretty quickly built this reputation. A really strong advocate for tenants' rights. That was big. Public transportation, social justice issues. It sort of laid the groundwork, you could say, for the progressive platform he's pushing now.
Okay, so established himself in the assembly, focusing on those core issues. And it sounds like those are front and center in his mayoral campaign now. Let's pivot to that 2025 campaign, beating Cuomo for the nomination. What are the big policy ideas driving it? The ones getting headlines?
Oh, absolutely. The platform is definitely ambitious. It tackles some of New York's biggest headaches head on. You've got proposals like making public transportation completely free.
Free transit in NYC, the scale of that.
Exactly. The sheer cost, the logistics.
Yeah.
You'd need, new city taxes probably, or finding huge amounts of money somewhere else, maybe state or federal help. It's massive.
What else?
He's also talking about freezing rent citywide. And building 200,000 affordable housing units.
Again, huge promises, not small tweaks.
No, these are fundamental shifts he's proposing for the city's economy, its social structure. Oh, and another big one, a $30 minimum wage by 2030.
$30 minimum wage. Wow. These are definitely bold ideas. Transformative, you could say. And speaking of transformation, his candidacy itself is pretty historic, isn't it? I mean, if he wins, he'd be New York City's first Muslim mayor, first Indian-American mayor, and first millennial mayor. That's quite something.
It's incredibly significant. It really speaks volumes about, the changing face of the city, the demographics, and that demand for political leaders who actually reflect that diversity.
Yeah.
Plus, the millennial aspect signals a generational shift. Maybe different priorities coming to the forefront, things younger people are really feeling, like housing costs, wages.
Right. And how he's campaigning feels very modern, very tied into that generational shift, too. Social media, especially, people talk about his meme-driven campaigns, really connecting with younger voters. Can you unpack that a bit? Why does that approach work so well right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. These meme campaigns, they manage to take what can be pretty complex policy stuff and boil it down into something, super shareable, digestible. They're often funny, a bit irreverent sometimes. They cut through the usual political noise, the kind of dry messaging we often see.
Hmm.
It feels more authentic, maybe more direct, especially for people who live online. He's had posts go viral, creative stuff. Remember him jumping into icy water?
I do remember that, yeah. It gets attention, no doubt.
It gets buzz.
And it seems like that buzz translates into actual support, right? Looking at his fundraising numbers.
It does. It's not just clicks and likes. You see it in the fundraising. He broke records, actually. Raised over $642,000 in just the first 80 days from over 6,500 unique donors.
Wow. 6,500 individual donors that early on.
Yeah, a new record for this 2025 race. And lots of small dollar donations, which usually points to really strong grassroots energy, real engagement.
Okay, but with that kind of rapid rise and bold platform, there's bound to be pushback, challenges, controversies, and Mamdani certainly has his share. Let's talk about the criticisms. His progressive policies, things like his stance on Israel or his proposals to abolish ICE, immigration, and customs enforcement, these have stirred up national debate. You often hear him framed as either, radical or, on the other hand, a necessary voice for change for a city struggling with inequality. How do we understand these really polarized views?
Well, it really depends on your perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For his supporters, abolishing ICE might be about creating a more humane immigration system, pushing back against what they see as federal overreach in the city.
Right.
But for critics, it's often framed as, undermining law enforcement or even national security. Very different interpretations.
Right.
And it's not just domestic policy. His comments on India, calling Prime Minister Modi a war criminal, talking about Kashmir.
Yeah.
They caused a significant backlash from India. Politicians there, social media. It shows how local politics can ripple globally now.
And the criticism hasn't just been about policy or international relations. It's gotten personal, too. After he won the primary, he faced some really ugly stuff. Islamophobic attacks, even death threats. People calling him a Hamas terrorist sympathizer. Apparently it led to investigations, more security. What does that kind of reaction tell us?
It's unfortunately a reflection of how nasty and personal political attacks can get these days. Especially, it seems, when candidates challenge the status quo or come from minority backgrounds. The aim often seems less about debating ideas and more about, frankly, trying to dehumanize or silence opponents.
Yeah, it's disturbing. And then there are other critiques, maybe less intense, but still making headlines, like the rapper 50 Cent weighing in. He criticized Mamdani's proposed tax policies, famously offering him a one-way ticket out of New York. That got a lot of press.
It did. And it's significant because when a figure like 50 Cent jumps in, it suddenly puts those maybe wonky tax policy details onto the radar of a much wider audience. People who might not normally follow city tax debates suddenly hear about it. It highlights the potential economic impact, especially for wealthier residents or businesses. It makes it very public.
Right. Just quickly, for a bit more context on him personally, he got married earlier in 2025 to Rama Duaji, who's a Syrian-American artist. They live in Astoria, Queens.
Astoria.
So let's try and wrap this up. Summing up our deep dive today, Zohran Mamdani emerges as this, really unique political figure. His rise is fueled by this mix of things, that international background, very bold, progressive policies aiming for big changes in New York, savvy social media use connecting with younger voters, and record-setting grassroots fundraising.
A powerful combination.
Definitely. He's easily one of the most talked about figures in this 2025 race. And he's navigating, some serious debate and controversy as he pushes his vision.
So maybe the question for you, listening, is this. Considering everything we've discussed, Mamdani's unique background, his really ambitious platform, and the very strong reactions he gets, both good and bad, what do you think his prominence in this race really tells us about the changing priorities and maybe the divisions within a huge city like New York today? And, thinking bigger, how might this kind of candidacy shape political conversations moving forward?